What up guys, JT Anime Nerd here, bring you all that nerdy goodness. Today I'm here to talk about what could have been Insomniac Games' Marvel Universe. This honestly could still happen, but I feel it'll take way longer since 3 major games were created by 2 separate game developers. We're going to talk about how the games that exist, that being Marvel's Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, could have existed in the same universe as Insomniac's Spider-Man. We're also going to talk about games that could have been and could still be, and how they could work in this universe, as well as what heroes could be perfect for solo games and what heroes could be perfect for team-up games. I'm not going to go over future games that are and aren't tied to this universe, one being the recently announced Blade video game or the Captain America and Black Panther video game, because since they're in development, I'd rather wait and see what they have to offer, so in terms of those characters, I'll simply just go over how they could have had their own solo games. Now, I'm about to mention 3 future titles, but these titles were leaked due to the Insomniac Games hack, so please don't condemn me for mentioning them. These games are the obvious future Spider-Man 3 game, future Venom game, can't wait for them to explain that one, the Wolverine game, which was announced a few years ago, and finally, the X-Men game. There is one untitled project that was leaked, but we have yet to know if it's even a Marvel game or not. But anyway, let's get into the discussion. So the first thing I want to point out from Marvel's Avengers, which was done dirty in my opinion, with how the gameplay layout, limited open world, and microtransactions were, possess a similar, if not the exact same kind of animation that Insomniac's Spider-Man also has. It's pretty obvious to see, and even Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy possesses the same animation style, a more hyper-realistic style that tries to give off similar vibes that compares to the MCU. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an original intention for these games to connect to a bigger universe. Even Thanos' effect on the universe in the Guardians of the Galaxy was so great that it seemed like it was meant to build up Thanos' return in a big way, and it's leading up to that I want to explain how this universe could have gone. The first game we got at the original Marvel Spider-Man game that confirms that the Avengers in this universe exist after taking a picture of Avengers Tower. Peter even mentions that they're somewhere on the West Coast, which, according to some research I've done, lines up perfectly with the celebration event at the beginning of Marvel's Avengers. Now, I know people are going to say there's a continuity issue pertaining to Spider-Man being a playable character and being revealed to be in a separate universe from Insomniac's, but we can't forget that this connection was created before Spider-Man even came into Marvel's Avengers. And since Marvel's Avengers did very poorly, I'm pretty sure they wanted to keep them as separate as they could. If the game was actually praised, I guarantee they would have kept him in the same universe. The Avengers are also confirmed by Spider-Man's Taskmaster, who boasts about going toe-to-toe with the Avengers. Marvel's Spider-Man also confirms the existence of Daredevil, Kingpin being an obvious nod, but could still exist in a Spider-Man universe without Daredevil. However, one of the collectible items in Marvel's Spider-Man is a business card promoting Nelson and Murdoch's law firm. You can even find the building their law firm was in, or is in, as well as the bar Josie's, which Matt usually goes to, at least according to my memory. 2 other Easter eggs were Fogwell's Gym, a connection to Daredevil's father, and Clinton Church, a place Matt Murdock attends frequently in his storylines due to being Catholic. Not only does this confirm that Daredevil exists in this universe, but it could have given us the perfect opportunity to have a new Daredevil video game by Insomniac, which I'll get into later. Continuing timeline-wise, Marvel's Spider-Man can easily take place before the prologue of Marvel's Avengers. As for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, we can definitely place its prologue about Peter way before any other superhero besides Captain America came to be, as Star-Lord's childhood did take place in the 80s. Now, when it comes to the main story of the Avengers, I honestly think AIM's Rising could have taken a long time to accumulate, so I honestly think the events of Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 could take place during the aftermath of the incident in San Francisco involving the Avengers, creating the excuse as to why they're not present in New York during the 2 Spider-Man games. The Guardians of the Galaxy game released and seemingly takes place in 2021, the same year as Spider-Man 2, but considering the release order, I'd consider the story happened before Spider-Man 2. Now, just to recap in terms of main story timeline, we have Marvel's Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man 2, and finally, after 5 years, the main story of Marvel's The Avengers takes place. Now, I know I said I wouldn't go over future titles, but I think it's safe to say that since they may be in the same animation style, the Wolverine, Blade, Venom, Spider-Man 3, and X-Men games would take place during the 5-year gap between the San Francisco incident and the main story of the Avengers. With that, the timeline's set. So now, let's go over games I think would be perfect for this universe. The first game we'll go over is a Daredevil game, which would also act as a gateway for either a Defenders game or for this to pretty much just introduce the Defenders at least. A Marvel's Daredevil would introduce us to the street-level heroes such as Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. We would also be introduced to Iron Fist, but that would be because the Daredevil game would introduce the Hand, as well as Elektra. The major antagonist of the game would be Kingpin, who would be released from prison and make his return after the events of Spider-Man. However, the primary antagonist would be the Beast, a deity of the Hand, with Elektra kind of at first being on the side of the Hand, but betraying them later in the game and becoming Daredevil's prime love interest. Marvel's Daredevil would take place after Marvel's Avengers, as Matt Murdock, a solo defense attorney, would be long retired from being Daredevil until one of his cases ends up involving both Kingpin and the Hand, forcing Matt to don the suit once again, and even reconnect with his former partner, Foggy Nelson. The storyline would be based off of the Devil's Reign comic, just like how the MCU is building up toward that storyline in the MCU currently, with the Hand ultimately trying to complete a ritual to summon the Beast into the physical realm. The gameplay of Marvel's Daredevil would be something akin to a combination of the Batman Arkham series and Assassin's Creed. I'd even make it so Daredevil could drop down from the top of a building's Assassin's Creed style. The next game would be Marvel's Doctor Strange, introducing the supernatural side of Insomniac's Marvel Universe. Now, in terms of gameplay, I would have to leave it up to the developers, because a Doctor Strange game would warrant its own gameplay style. If I were to take inspiration from a game, I would either say Devil May Cry or The Witcher, preferably Witcher 3, or maybe even a Soulsborne inspired game, just without the rigged difficulty. Now, in terms of story, I'd have Doctor Strange travel through a myriad of realms and dimensions, not counting the 9 realms, as that's for another obvious game we'll get into later. Doctor Strange will be investigating rifts between dimensions all throughout New York, leading him to travel to other realms to find its source. In this game, we will see Dormammu, but he won't be the primary antagonist. We'd even see characters such as Nightmare, Mordo, Sidorak, Caecilius, and even the High Evolutionary. As for heroes, this game would introduce Clea, having it be the first time they've ever met, as well as introduce us to an on-screen Wong, a character that Spider-Man 2 confirmed exists in this universe, and even give the introduction to Magic and Juggernaut. If they don't appear in the upcoming X-Men game, which I'm sure at least Juggernaut will, not sure if Magic will though, but if she doesn't, a Doctor Strange game would be a good introduction to Magic. However, the big contending introduction would be Scarlet Witch, who would be responsible for the dimension shattering. Scarlet Witch acts as the secondary primary antagonist, where the true primary antagonist would be revealed to be Chthon, and the storyline of the game would take inspiration from the House of M storyline. The next game in the lineup would be a Thor game, which would possess a gameplay similar to the God of War 2018 game, which the Avengers game tried to do but didn't do it very well. Thor would be able to explore all the 9 realms. If anything, Thor was meant to be a more science fantasy version of the God of War 2018 through Ragnarok storyline. In fact, the story revolving around this game would be that Ragnarok is on the horizon, and it's up to Thor to prevent it before it claims the 9 realms. This game would introduce us to Odin, Valkyrie, Sif, the Warriors 3, reintroduce this universe's version of Mighty Thor / Jane Foster, since an alternate version was introduced in the Avengers game, Balder the Brave, Beta Ray Bill, and everyone's favorite god of mischief, Loki. who would debut in the design he was supposed to have in Marvel's Avengers. As for bosses and potential allies and antagonists, we would include other gods and primordial beings such as Enchantress, Hela, Zeus, Hercules, Ares, Malekith, Laufey, and Surtur, and even cosmic beings such as the Grand Master, the Collector, the Silver Surfer, and yes, Galactus. The storyline would be based on the Thor, God of Thunder, combined with the War of the Realms storyline, which will revolve around Gore the God Butcher, as well as Malekith, its machinations surrounding the War of the Realms. However, in this story, Gore would only be more of a secondary antagonist, as the primary antagonists would be Malekith, those who sit above in shadow, and the Black Winter. Marvel's Thor would provide an equipment system akin to an RPG, where Thor could change pieces of his armor, hairstyle, and even his weapons. While Mjolnir would be Thor's main weapon, the game would begin with him separating from Mjolnir, leaving him with little choice but to wield various swords, axes, maces, etc. Each weapon would have its own rankings stemming from common, powerful, mythic, and cosmic. Weapons such as Mjolnir and Stormbreaker are classified as mythic, possessing magical properties and giving the weapon a specific status or elemental effect for either Thor or Thor's enemies. Cosmic weapons possess their own specific perks or effects, such as the Odin Sword, which would give Thor the full power of the Odin Force, which allows Thor to unleash attacks and combos only specific to the Odin Sword. That being said, every weapon is also given its own unique special attack, with Mjolnir possessing an attack called God Blast. It would even be an armor and weapons forging system, which allows Thor to create new weapons from materials he finds throughout the 9 realms, and weapons and armor can even be upgraded with specific runes and artifacts. Finally, a big part of Thor's story arc in this game will be dealing with his warrior madness, a type of Asgardian PTSD that Thor has possessed since his first battle as a child, due to the effects that the warrior's life has had on his mind. The next game after Thor would be back to a more grounded step with the Punisher game, which I have to say, despite my disinterest in the genre, would play best as a first-person shooter. Except for Halo. I love Halo. It would take place in between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 during Kingpin's time in prison. We would at least see an introduction to Misty Knight, but aside from her, this would be more of a Punisher solo game. The story of the game would revolve around dealing with gangs related to the Kingpin while he's in prison, giving us villains such as Jigsaw, the Return of Hammerhead, but the primary antagonist would be the Purple Man, who would be controlling the minds and actions of Kingpin's remaining criminal empire. The gameplay would pretty much play out as your standard first-person shooter where you can loot guns from enemies. Nothing too complicated. The next big game after the Punisher would be a Captain America game, which would take place during an alternate version of World War II. Now I know they're working on a Captain America and Black Panther game, but this game would solely be focused on Captain America and his fight against an Avengers level force, as well as is more of a time travel game than an actual prequel. When it comes to the heroes, we would meet Wolverine, T'Chaka Black Panther, the original Human Torch, a younger Thor, Mar-Vell, Hank Pym's Ant-Man, the Ancient One, Moon Knight, and even the Illuminati. When it comes to the villains, we would meet Red Skull, Baron Zemo, Madam Hydra, Baron Von Strucker, and Arnim Zola. However, when it comes to more out of the ordinary antagonists, we would bring in a young Magneto, Namor the Submariner, Winter Soldier, Ronan the Accuser, or at least an alternate version of him, and an alternate Doctor Doom. And finally, the primary antagonist, Kang the Conqueror, who succeeded in conquering the timeline. We would even get involved with the TVA, Mobius, Renslayer, the Timekeepers, and Kang variants such as Ramatut, Scarlet Centurion, and Immortus. The game's story would be based on the Kang Dynasty storyline and would also serve as a more grounded version of the Secret War storyline, as different timelines and eras would pull together in order to form Battleworld. In terms of gameplay, I'd have to say this game would take inspiration from Metal Gear, combining the third-person gameplay of Rising Revengeance with all of the other game's military stealth gameplay. It's known for, at least. After getting to Black Panther's part of the story, Captain America would be free to upgrade or change the design of his vibranium shield. I would even implement a serum system, where Captain America could gain specific perks from special variants of the Super Soldier Serum, enhancing his own. Different serums could increase strength, durability, vitality, etc. Captain America can even switch out or upgrade pieces of his costume to be more padded and armored variants for better defense and less damage. Captain America can also use guns as seen in the Captain America movie, which can be looted from enemies, and its gameplay is treated like shooting in Fortnite. The guns, however, would be a huge part of a karma system. Similar to the infamous games, since Captain America was all about warfare, he'd have to make decisions based on either being a soldier or a hero. Knocking out enemies and making good vital decisions fills the hero gauge, while killing enemies and making morally questionable decisions fills the soldier gauge, either determining whether you get to be the good or bad ending. Spoiler alert, the good ending's always canon. And with that, we're going to bring part 1 of this multi-part concept to a close. If you guys enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, share, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to stay updated on the latest videos. Also, don't forget to check out our merch store, Buy Me a Coffee page, and Amazon affiliate link linked in the description and pinned comment below. Before we close out, I also want to let you know about my comic audiobook called Pendragon: Knights of the Round, the story of King Arthur retold as a superhero origin and story. If you guys love fantasy, mythology, and superheroes, you'll love this story. You can listen to issue 1 right now. The link to that video, as well as connecting lore and promo videos, will be in the description below. With all that said and done, I'm JT Anime, and I'll check you guys later.